each generation in my family influences the older one to a certain degree, and sort of takes their own little twist on things. You know, my great-grandfather he planted the orchard, and he really got it going, and he used, God only knows what he used, arsenic or lead, and things that back then were considered the way to go for raising apples. And then we've adjusted over time to less toxic material, so that it's been many, many years since we've used anything that has an EPA danger label on it. We'll use just caution or warning, and so we've used materials that are less problematic or less worrisome. And we've had some soil samples done recently, because we want to know if there's any residuals in the soil from past practices, and coming up with no lead and no toxins that are of any great concern. So we're relieved about that, and we move forward from here, putting the chemical spray regime aside, and taking this new approach, which is my daughter's forte and wish, and I'm happy to work with her.
There, I assume, are positives and negatives, maybe some cost reduction, but
cost
cosmetic and
cost reduction, time reduction. I don't have to spend as much time spraying, which in the past I'd be out there 17 times a year spraying the trees. But we got beautiful fruit, and now it's not so beautiful. Beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, but I guess if you know that it's truly an organic product, and there's a certain beauty in that, I guess. So we're adapting.
have you run into issues with toxicity on other properties, especially where you're dealing with water supply?
Not directly through my work, but there's another orchard in town that was purchased by a developer, and they ran into some toxicity issues in the soils over there, which caused problems with the transfer of the property. So that's the kind of thing that sort of wakes us up and go, you know, everyone's a little worried about where there are orchards, there's things to worry about in the soil, but it all depends on what was been used in the past and what the practices were. So fortunately, in our case, we seem to be okay.
Well, that provides a segue to, will this property ever be developed?
No. Let's hope not. We've actually, of the 60 some odd acres that we've owned, we've got a 35-acre conservation restriction with Department of Conservation and Recreation. It's a watershed preservation restriction. And then we have a 15-acre conservation restriction with the Sterling Land Trust. And then the rest of the land, which is really the orchards and the land across the street and along the road, arrangements are made so that upon my mother's death, my mother is still with us, that land goes into a conservation restriction with the Sterling Land Trust. So at the end of the day, the entire farm will be protected, which is really great news for all of us. That's my family's excited about that, and we don't ever want to see another house get built. Three of my siblings have built houses on lots that my dad gave them, but we tried to keep them as far away from the orchard as possible. And we hope that that'll be the end of it.
So early in the century, there would have likely been a lot less forest and a lot more fields and farms.
Well, even in my lifetime, looking across the valley here, we could see fields along the ridge, which now you can't see anymore. So this has been almost a complete reversion from. And the first family that was here for 150 years looked over at very little woodland, you know, just fields and pastures everywhere. We've purchased a lot of the land across the valley, directly across from here, and as a result, I've had the opportunity to perambulate through a lot of those lots and look at a lot of those walls and try to imagine which of these walls and which of these, what were fields and pastures, could be seen from this vantage over here. So I'm always trying to put myself back into what it was like here 100 years ago. But it has changed dramatically. I've been trying to figure out in recent years if my land ethic, if I can call it that, is if I'm being progressive in how I think, or if I'm being selfish in how I think. I know that I've been lucky to grow up in an environment where land has been plentiful at my disposal and has molded my character. And I've learned to love it. And if I could somehow get young people today to embrace the joys of land, enjoying land, understanding land, knowing what land does for us, sort of taking on the what's the phrase is sort of no child left inside kind of thing, nature deficit disorder. It is concerning that it seems that so many young people today are spending a lot of their free time with devices and not with insects, snakes, and foxes. So, and my ethic is to try to foster an ethic in others. And if I can convey the love and excitement that landscape, that land that grows food, that grows timber, that supports wildlife, that keeps water clean, that we can't live without. And if there's a complacency in the next generation towards that, then the ethic is askew. And so am I being selfish or self-righteous? I don't know, but I hope not. I just want to get young people to appreciate what land and open space can do for your soul, really. It really shapes you and allows you to look at the world in a way that seems somewhat timeless, you know.